Hey, Jonathan. Thank you so much for joining. I'm so excited. It's so funny. So one of my memories, I've known you for a while now. I think it's like been 15 years or something crazy, more or less. And one of my memories of you is we're sitting in front of a computer. At that time, it was like ancient computers or desktops, and you were personality typing somebody just based upon their picture, and you nailed them. And that is my memory of you. Like, so there's your introduction. Hello, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate being here, Ariel. And obviously everything.
Information. Yeah.
Right, exactly. It's interesting how, that's how a lot of things in the world are. Like, obviously, when it comes to traditional stuff, there are diagnoses of things that, and even if you go to like marriage counseling, they'll try to figure out what your problem is and label what the problem is, but that doesn't actually help you with the solution. So ultimately, what I've found the solution really is that we change our own experience. We take responsibility for our own experience. What we're often doing is trying to resolve our experience by trying to change someone or something else. We think that focusing on relationship oriented stuff, if this person only listened to me more, everything would be better. If this person just communicated better, then I would feel better in this relationship. If this person just loved me the way I wanted to be loved, like that would solve everything. If guys did this, if girls did that, but ultimately that's really just pushing the responsibility onto someone else for an experience that we're having. And if we're having the experience, then we could be changing something in order to have a different experience. And that's what we would want to do if we want to have a different experience. So when I was doing all the Enneagram stuff, I was figuring out that sort of was the bridge into this realization, because I realized that if you redefine the Enneagram types, and ultimately any personality types, you could do the same thing with Myers-Briggs and everything else. And I actually did this in The Relationship Key, one of my books. It's if you redefine them as a relationship with your own thoughts, feelings, and wants with yourself, then you recognize what the path is to changing it. Because ultimately, if you're like, let's say, like Enneagram 5, you feel like you want to be useful to other people, but it's really your thoughts wanting to be useful to you. Enneagram 9, it's really you want to be creating peace and harmony, around you, but really it's that you want to be creating peace and harmony within you. And really it's that you're inclined to treat your own wants as though they are causing conflict. And so then they feel like, I just want peace and harmony with you. I don't want to disturb you too much. I just won't express what I really want with you. But then you end up feeling like, I can't express what I really want with this other person because I would just cause issues, because that's what you're making your own wants feel. So if you could recognize it as a relationship with yourself, then you can change it, because then you could say, well, if I'm feeling right now with this other person, like I can't express myself for whatever reason, then I want to identify what it is exactly that I'm feeling. Like I can't express myself because it feels like I'll just be creating issues, or because of the way the person's going to react or whatever else. And then we could turn around and say, so I've been making myself feel like I have been I've been making my own thoughts, feelings, wants, my own internal guidance feel like it's creating issues if it speaks up to me. And I want to make it feel like it can actually speak up freely and that it will get positive results with me. So then we can figure out where have we been doing this, and then change that, like where am I not really listening to what I want and letting my wants speak to me openly? Where am I pushing them aside, saying this is just going to cause issues? It could be in the relationship, it could be in our career, it could be in our health, it could be with our friends, it could be anything. It could be where we're living, because we're not listening to the fact that it doesn't feel right to live where we're living, and we're doing it anyway, and we're not making any effort to change the situation. And then obviously no one can make us feel anything different. So that's what I ended up zeroing in on, was no one can make us feel anything different from what we're making ourselves feel. And if we want to be made to feel different from what we're feeling, then we want to change how we're making ourselves feel, and recognize that the world is an exact mirror of what's going on inside us. And when we can do that, you can change anything in your experience, and you're not at the whim of some external partner or anyone or anything, because they're just helping you see what's in you that you can change so that you can have a different experience. And so ultimately then everything is your partner. It's nice to have your partner be your partner instead of your ally, be your ally instead of your enemy in your progression forward toward good experiences. And that's really the way to transform that, because even in the worst situations, you can be able to step away and say, okay, how am I make myself feel this? And get what the message is, and then change that, and then feel so much better about your partner for showing you what you were doing, even if it didn't seem pleasant at the time.
It's very hard to look at yourself. Like that is I mean, okay, everybody can do it in a mirror, right? Oh yeah, my hair looks great today. But to really like look deep into yourself, what? Like it is so, yeah. And it goes back to kind of what you're saying is like, yeah, it's easy to type people, right? I'm going to go to the Enneagram just because it's pretty well known or whatever. But I mean, I was going to explain really quickly what it is just for anybody listening that doesn't know, but it's or do you want to explain? You can explain it really quickly, I'm sure.
Sure. Yeah, it's a system of 9 personality types where there are 3 thinking types, 3 feeling types, 3 instinctual types. And usually it's identified as categorization based on different basic desires or different basic motivations, be it to be competent and capable, to have peace, to to achieve and be successful and appear well in other people's eyes, to be loyal and trustworthy, and responsible. So they're all different basic motivations. And basically the idea is we all have all of them within us, but there's always one that's primary, one that's secondary. And the one that's secondary is, most people would say, either one number more, one number less than the main type. So then that tends to accurately describe how people operate. And ultimately, if you really delve into it, you can see that there are all sorts of interesting associations with each of the types. You could see like things that different similarities in appearance, in the way people hold themselves, and the way that they talk, and the way that they act. And like you look at them in any context or situation, and if you are familiar enough with the types, it's like knowing the difference between an oak leaf and a maple leaf. You'll see it every time. Like once you know the difference, you'll see it every time. But if you have no idea what the difference is, then they're just leaves. Everyone's a person and whatever. But there are definitely, and obviously every oak leaf is unique, but there are definitely, like if you put together a whole bunch of oak leaves, you can tell these are all oak leaves, and all the maple leaves, they definitely like all have something in common. It's the same thing with the types.
Yeah. So it goes back to knowing that in yourself. And I've heard this expression too, what you resist persists, right? Yeah. So it goes right back to that, like working on yourself. So, okay. So how did you started to go now looking in instead of looking out? After looking out, you've decided to come back in. Mm-hmm. And how has that changed? And what have you learned? And how are you, like, once you realize it, okay, it's one thing to realize it, but it's another thing to actually do something with that too.
Yeah. Well, like you said, it's kind of difficult to look in the mirror. I actually, interestingly, there are plenty of people who actually have a hard time looking in the mirror literally. So, you said it's easy to look in the mirror. It's not for everyone. So it's
just those vain people or narcissistic. I don't know.
I mean, obviously, if you realize that it's all a mirror and you're looking at yourself, that's where relationships get interesting. It also makes it so that you realize you can't escape yourself. If we often think, I want a relationship because then I will feel X, Y, and Z, except that it's actually only going to make you feel more of whatever you're already feeling. So it's not actually going to help you feel something different. If you're looking to someone to make you feel something different, then it isn't going to work. So as far as like, what do you do with it? How does it change things? It changes if you really embrace the idea that your partner is a mirror of you, that everyone is a mirror of you, everything is a mirror of you, then there's no sense in trying to put the responsibility on someone or something else for either your happiness or your misery. Like ultimately, if you see that you are feeling something that you don't want to feel, then you want to ask yourself, how am I doing exactly what this person is doing? And if you realize you're feeling something that you do like feeling, then you want to ask yourself, how have I been making myself feel this, rather than thinking, oh, because when I'm with this person, I feel this, because that actually is a recipe for no longer feeling that sometime soon, because because we're basically telling ourselves, I will now leave you for this other person because I think the happiness came from them. And then that doesn't feel good, because then we end up getting the reflection of someone leaving us for something or someone else. And because the mirror is literal. So, I mean, obviously different people talk about the idea of the outside world being a mirror of the inside, but I take it as extreme as it could possibly go, because it really literally works that way. And then practically, I've been putting this in action in my own life, and also helping my clients with this. I'm at this point a life coach, relationship coach, career coach, business coach, health coach, and more. So basically that's how I work with people, is I help them recognize how whatever it is that they've been feeling, they've been making themselves feel that, and then how and where, in what area of life, what's going on there. And then if we change that, it actually changes the reflection in the mirror. So often we think the issue is in one area, but it's actually not. Like if you think the issue is in your relationship, but it's actually not, then, and you keep trying to change the relationship, then you're only going to make it worse, because you're showing that you're missing the point, which then gets more of the reflection that the point is being missed. And so it becomes very frustrating when you keep trying to, wipe the smudge off in the mirror image, and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
because there's no smudge on the mirror itself. And like, ultimately, if you were to wipe the smudge off your own face, and then you would immediately see the result in the mirror, and that's what happens, literally. So then if you're not paying yourself the kind of attention that you want to be paid, then you can pay yourself the attention you want to be paid. If you notice that you're not loving yourself the way you want to be loving yourself, because you see that person is not really loving you the way that you want to be loved, or caring for you the way you want to be cared about, or whatever, then ask, how have I been doing exactly what they're doing, and how could I change that? How could I love and care for myself more the way that I would want to love and care for myself? If you feel like, I mean, really anything, like obviously, if this person's frustrating me because they keep doing the same thing over and over again, no matter how many times I tell them this, like, this bothers me, well, then where are we, where am I doing the same thing over and over again, when there's something in me that's saying that doesn't actually feel right, but I'm doing it anyway? And and then obviously look at the reasons they're giving you. It's the same reasons you're giving yourself. It's literal. So it's very helpful if you're willing to look in the mirror, because the mirror shows you an exact reflection. And if you're looking at it that way, then there's no mystery. It's not like, well, where am I doing this? What am I doing here? It's like, well, how are they doing this? Tell me what your frustration is with your partner, and I'll tell you what your frustration is with yourself, and we could change it, So,
it's really going to like the root cause of it. You're
Mhm.
going down to like, yeah. And once you change the roots, then the tree can grow differently.
Yes,
I'm
exactly.
going back to that tree analogy, is the oak tree, the maple tree, now
Mhm.
we're going to bring in a pine tree.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, the tree analogy. That's a really useful idea, because it also, in terms of relationships that are rooted in the wrong place, you can't actually it's not easy to move a tree. Ultimately, if a relationship is rooted in, like, you were feeling really unloved and unlovable, and then you found this person from that space when everything in your life was miserable, and this person was your hope and savior, then that's not going to last. It can't last, because that was rooted in a ground of your life not being positive, other than in this one seeming hope, being the relationship that can't sustain itself, because ultimately the person can end up making you feel unloved and unlovable also, because that was the ground in which it was rooted. Even though, those are the, like, really intense but short-lived relationships where they seem really amazing, but they can't last, and they end sort of devastatingly, because it's like a tree that's rooted, that you've planted in a place that you would not want a tree, and it grows too far, where there's no chance of taking it out and planting it somewhere else, and you have to just cut it down and plant another tree. And obviously, when your entire hope is riding on that relationship, because you were in such a bad place when that came into the picture, ultimately then you want to look at it as, this was a glimpse of what I could experience. How could I make myself experience that? Like, what could I do that would make me feel more of that? Like I would want to feel this excited about life. Well, how could I do that? I would want to feel like this much, like I'm looking forward to the day. Well, how could I make myself feel that? I would like to make myself feel like I'm actually interested. Like like I'm so attractive to myself, like I want to feel that way. And if we are willing to then ask those kinds of questions, then we could learn even from those kinds of situations. So as far as the tree thing, we do want to create the kind of fertile soil of our lives where emotionally we are in the right space, that we would want wherever we are supported, that we would want, you know, like that you're creating a situation career wise, health wise, you know, family wise, etc., where you are happy with where you are and you would be happy to share that happiness with someone. That's the best space where then you're planting the seed in soil where you would want that tree growing for the rest of your life, because there's never a time when you're not going to want to feel happier, probably. Or happy at least.
Yeah.
So like as long as it's rooted in that emotional space, then you're good.
That makes sense. So when you were talking about this, I had this thought of, you're always told as you're younger, you know, treat people the way you'd want to be treated, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't always happen. I mean, you'd maybe treat the person that way, but that doesn't happen. It's not reciprocated, right? And I get into relationships and I end up treating the person like I think how I would want to be treated. And then I don't get that back.
Yeah, because that statement is entirely flawed.
My whole childhood is ruined now.
Definitely. It's interesting, you know, love thy neighbor as thyself. It's rooted in the foundation of all, you know, of like the major Western religions.
Yeah.
It's not valid because it really ought to be love yourself as you would want your neighbor to love you. You know, it really ought to be treat yourself as you want to be treated. If you were treating yourself as you want to be treated, then you would actually end up treating other people that way naturally. It wouldn't require effort or force because you're already treating yourself that way. So it's only natural to, you know, if you're talking to yourself a certain way, you're going to talk to other people that way too, which goes, you know, in good and bad directions. Like if you're being really mean to yourself, then the people closest to you are going to get that meanness too, because you can't hold it in. You can't only treat yourself a certain way. So if you treat yourself really well, then the people around you, including the people closest to you, get to experience the best version of you, treating them well. And ultimately, if you're treating yourself the way you want to be treated, then you will already be attended to and your needs will be met, and you will be able to actually be there for another person in the way they want someone to be there for them, not in the way you think you should be there for them, but isn't necessarily the way that they want someone to be there for them, because you would be attending to your own actual needs, not doing for yourself what you think is needed by being there for the other person, because you think that's the way you're supposed to be able to be there for yourself in the best way, which then is already setting yourself up for failure, because you're saying to them, treat me the way that I treat myself, when I'm too busy treating you a certain way or trying to treat you a certain way and not taking care of me. And then they do the same thing. And then they are there for themselves in not the right ways, because we're being there for them, but not in the right ways. And no one is there for us. And so if you're going to treat someone the way that you want to be treated, then you guarantee that you will, like if that's your aim, not that that's not what you do, because obviously in the end, that's the side effect of treating yourself the way you want to be treated. But if you make your aim treat someone as you want to be treated, then you actually are guaranteeing that you will not be treated the way you want to be treated, because you're going to be treated the way you're treating yourself when you are not making yourself the highest priority. And then you feel like you're not very much of a priority to anyone.
That's me. That's me in a relationship. That is
has been.
totally what?
That has been you.
It has been.
Meaning that's the beginning of change, when you're able to say that has been me up until now, up until and including this moment. But from here on, I choose to put a door where before I saw a wall, or just, you know, endless, the sameness. And so rather than this is me, you know, this has been me. And going forward, I would like to be the person who treats myself the way I want to be treated and gets that reflected back at me.
Very true. That has been me. And I like that. I'm definitely going to use that. And I also think of the analogy in a way, when you're in an airplane, you know, they say, oh, put the safety mask on yourself before you put it on your child, or before you put on your neighbor. Mm-hmm. And so that's really what it comes down to. Put your safety mask on first.
That is the best analogy for this kind of situation. It's the same thing with a lot of things with children. You know, if you try to, you know, obviously parents do this, but if you try to feed your child when you haven't fed yourself, you try to make sure your child is well slept, but you're not sleeping, et cetera, then you end up resenting your child. You don't end up having really purely positive feelings toward your child if you're doing all this, because that child becomes the reason you don't get taken care of. by you, you know, like ultimately, if you make sure that you prioritize eating and sleeping and, you know, to the best of your ability within the context of the situation, recognizing that the child is going to challenge you in all the ways you've challenged you before, because that's just the way life is. Same thing with a partner, that whatever we've done to ourselves, that's what's going to be done to us. And so then if we've been neglecting our own wants, then someone else is going to neglect our wants. It's going to put us in a position where we have to stand up for what we want a little bit more firmly, in order to make it happen. That will happen if that's what we've been doing to ourselves. So then we don't want to just say, oh, life continues to do this to me, you know, like this is just the way it is, this is who I am. We want to say, I see what's been going on here, I see the pattern, and I don't want to keep doing this to myself, you know, like meaning not I want to like force everyone to change, but I want to stand up for me, because if I don't, who will? If I don't stand up for what I want, then what am I telling everyone? Like, who, you know, who's my representative in this world? You know, like if not me. And we expect the person we're representing and being there for, you know, our partner or whatever else, to then reciprocate and be there for us, the way that like parents might think, well, I sacrificed myself for my child, I don't understand why my child doesn't like me and won't be there for me and take care of me in old age, you know, like, well, that is going to happen if you put so much energy into the child that you were then taking care of the child in ways that were not wanted, and imposing yourself on the child because you were, you know, putting all this negative energy, like stressed energy of I'm not being taken care of, but my child needs to be, you know, and then the child gets that energy. And then when the child grows up, does not want much of a relationship with the parent who was imposing him or herself on him or her. So ultimately that's like, it applies in all relationships. You want to treat yourself the way you want to be treated. If you want to build a positive relationship with anyone, then you have to come first to you, for you. And that's, you know, as far as like, you know, so it is the essence of put the oxygen mask on yourself first. Before they had planes, I don't know how we would have such a clear metaphor here.
Exactly. I think we would have been lost. Thank you, planes. Okay. No, but it's so fascinating. So when you're with your clients and you're trying to get like dig deep with them, right? Look at yourself. Are you doing the Enneagram or Myers-Briggs or any of these personality tests with them? Are you just looking, okay, so you're just, you know, their personality type because you obviously can assess them pretty well, but then you're just kind of digging in with them.
Yeah, I mean, the personality stuff is all sort of behind the scenes at this point, because it helps me recognize what they would be wanting, what they would be inclined not to be giving themselves, how they would be inclined to be interacting with other people in terms of, you know, where they're actually making themselves feel certain ways, etc. So if I can, you know, if I have this springboard into getting to know their relationship with themselves, why not use it? So that's what the personality type systems are doing for me in the background. It's not an imposed thing in any form, as much as it's just like, well, if I'm going to have like the cheat sheet on what their relationship is with themselves, you know, before they are even aware enough of it themselves, to tell me, then I can help them along in getting to know their relationship with themselves, because I see the themes, because I see the patterns, and you know, the themes hold. It's like red hair and freckles tends to come along in the same person. Obviously not always because of different factors, but you know, mutations and whatever. But ultimately, you know, if you know that there are certain things that tend to come along with other things, and then there's also the fact that really people's lives are showing them everything. So when people tell me about their lives, I don't need to know anything else, but then I see those themes and I recognize that as fitting in certain categories automatically. I see, okay, this is this personality type, but it's not like I'm saying that even in my head at this point. At this point, it's really just sort of an awareness. And that's really what we want to get to, you know, because when we're using personality types as a logical categorizing thing, then that categorizing, like I said, is actually keeping us from, it's like, you know, we sort of intellectualize so that we don't have to internalize and take responsibility. And, you know, it keeps it like at a safe
distance. Who wants to do that, right? Who wants to take responsibility? Sometimes it's easier to just, analyze. That's
the thing. We could analyze for all eternity and then tell our friends what we've analyzed about our partner and whatever else, except that it's just going to perpetuate the same issue where we're trying to get control over the situation or trying to keep ourselves right in the situation or something through our analysis, except that again, that doesn't change the fact that we're still treating ourselves however we're being treated there. And until we get to that part of the analysis, then nothing is going to change. And then we'll just experience the same thing over and over again, either in that relationship or over and over again from relationship to relationship, until we stop analyzing and grouping and saying, this is men, this is type whatever's, this is that, and instead say, well, clearly if I'm facing it, this is me. How am I doing that?
Yeah. And a lot of people do the same things together. I mean, obviously that's just human nature. Yeah, no, it's fascinating. So when you're with your couples, or you're coaching your couples, like how do you break that down a little bit? Because obviously they both have to look at themselves, like they're having a problem, they're blaming each other. So, you didn't close the dishwasher, you did it, I don't know, whatever it is, you never take out the trash. So how do you have them start to look at each other, look at themselves?
Well, actually, it's interesting, like asking it in that way. I think that the whole foundation of having couples come as a couple already sets you up for failure. That's what I found in my experience. I've been doing this for 13 years now. And whenever I have decided to try again with couples, it has been a bad, meaning together, it's been a bad idea. I work with people individually. And the reason for that is that it's the only way for people to actually really recognize they're coming for themselves. If someone says, I'm calling for my, I'm calling because I want to do couples counseling, they're really saying, I'm calling because I want you to fix my partner. Like I want you to get my partner to recognize what he or she is doing that really ought to change. And then we can have a better relationship. And that is, we're already on the wrong footing. We already planted the tree in the wrong ground. It's already in the wrong place. And so the only way that can change is if the person says, I'm willing to come to you because I want my experience to change. Like whether my partner comes or not, I want my experience to change, because that's who has control over changing their experience. It's this very person who is calling me can change this person's experience. This person cannot change the other person's experience. This person cannot change the other person to change their experience, but this person can change his or her experience. And what I found is when you get one person changing him or herself, it does change the other person. It's just that, you can't change it directly. That's true with anything in the world. You can't change problems directly. You've got to actually ask yourself, what does this really mean for me? And how is this making me feel? And where am I making myself feel that? Change that. And then that will change whatever that other thing was that was reflecting that back at you. Again, you can't change the mirror directly, but you can change what you're doing that's causing that reflection. So, if you're, like you're saying, this person doesn't close the dishwasher, doesn't do this, doesn't do that. Well, ultimately, then you'd be asking, well, what does that make you feel? And you'd see that in the theme of things. What does it make me feel that this is happening? Because it's always part of a larger picture. It's not just the dishwasher. If it were just the dishwasher, this one time, no context, then it's like, well, wow, what an overreaction. But there is no such thing as an overreaction. That's another part of this, because we're inclined to decide then that we're overreacting if we are really analyzing ourselves, but we're never overreacting. It's just that we're overreacting if we only look at what we think we're reacting to. We're not actually reacting to the dishwasher. We're not even reacting to our partner. We're actually reacting to a theme of how we've been treating ourselves this way before we even met our partner for a long time, for years, things where we could trace it back and be like, and my parent did this to me, and my, in my past life, this happened. We could just keep going. But ultimately, that's true. We could actually just keep going backward. And, psychology would trace it back to your childhood and say, that's where it started. Look, your parent did it. And I say, no, it's not where it started, because then you're saying, again, it's not your responsibility. Again, you're saying now it's someone else's fault. And now you can just, rest easy knowing it wasn't you, except it is. I mean, that's the thing. Like if you are experiencing it right now, you are making you feel this, and you can change that. And if you can't embrace that, you can't make yourself feel anything different. You're never going to have anyone else make you feel anything different. So ultimately, you'd want to be asking, what is this making me feel? Well, the person doesn't listen to me, or the person doesn't really care, or the dishwasher example, the person doesn't really care, or I've expressed this person to this person, I've expressed that this bothers me. they don't really care that it bothers me, or that this is the way that it would give me peace of mind. Clearly my peace of mind means nothing to this person. It's part of this larger thing. And then we want to ask ourselves, well, where am I seeming to not care about my peace of mind, or seeming to not care about what I really want, or continuing to repeat the same little things over and over again that are actually really big things to me, but I'm doing it. And I'm saying, oh, it's not so bad. How could you be reacting this way? But we're doing that, where are we doing that to ourselves? It's like, well, I'm going to the same job. Yeah, it's not so bad. It's just a little, so I don't like it. Big deal. Like, I need money. I'll keep doing it, whatever, like that. It builds up. It becomes a really bad thing when we just keep doing it over and over again. It's clear that it's bothering us and we're doing nothing to change it.
Shoving it down. Yeah. Just shoving it down. If there's a couple that's in a relationship, then like, let's say one person is narcissistic, or I mean, obviously diagnosed with some sort of condition. Does that change if it's about you, or is it about the other person at that point?
Always you. And ultimately, notice again, you're putting a label, which is exactly like I was saying about what you could misuse the Enneagram types for. And those labels are our way of saying, see, it's not really me. It's because they're narcissists, like, but that's saying something about you. If you're seeing it in them, that's saying something about, like, whatever you are then putting that label on, that's for you too, with yourself, relative to your own internal guidance, not necessarily relative to other people. That's the thing to really get a handle on. You won't necessarily be doing exactly the same thing as that person externally, but you are doing exactly what they're doing to you, to yourself. And you want to ask where you're doing that.
Okay. So give me like an example, because
so let's say you're labeling your partner a narcissist. Tell me, why is that happening? What's going on? Why are you labeling your partner that way? And then I can say how that actually.
So let's make up a scenario real quick. They care about their feelings. They care about how they come across to people, how they are perceived, right? So then they push that onto you, saying you need to dress this way, you need to be like this. This is very, however they're going to word it to you, but you need to act these certain ways because they're very concerned about their image, right? Okay, so we're in that scenario.
So now everything you just said about that other person, that's what I would say, the person who's experiencing that other person, that their internal guidance is saying that exact same thing. We could actually record you, play you back, and say, this is what your internal guidance is saying to you. I feel like you are, so concerned with how you come across to other people, and you keep imposing on me things that I don't want, that are not me, that do not feel good to me. But you're so concerned with how that's coming across to other people that you don't seem to care about who I am or what I want or what's going on with me. You only seem to care about how you're being perceived by others and how, whatever I'm expressing is going to come across to others. And so you keep trying to impose some image on me, but that's not me. That's what your own wants, your own thoughts, your own feelings are saying to you, your own internal guidance is saying to you, or whoever this person is in this relationship with this person. Ultimately, that's what, if you were to take that message and ask, well, where am I doing that? Where am I putting on a face, being something in ways, where it's not really what I want, it's not really what feels best for me, but I think it would be better for how I would come across to others. I think it would be better for the results it would get. I think it would be better, whatever, but it isn't really what I want, but that's what I think would be better. That's where we want to change.
Okay. I'm getting the hang of this a little bit now. Yeah. It's hard because it's really, I do a lot of self-work. I love self-growth. This is like my favorite topic that we're talking about right now. This is like, yes, I could talk about this for hours. But there's always, obviously this, because it's always changing and growing and things, you're evolving as a person. So, it's hard work. It's hard work sometimes to look at yourself.
Well, except you are repeating that it's hard work. And I would encourage you to say it has been hard work and that you would like it to be easier as you go, because otherwise, you're expressing something that is your imposed experience, which would look narcissistic to your internal guidance in some way, because you keep insisting on things being a certain way, and your internal guidance is like, that's not really how I feel or how it is or what I want. Why is it so important to you that it be this way? I don't really feel like it is this way or should be this way, or that I want it to be this way. And so certainly if you were being honest to what you really want, you'd never ask for things to be hard work. So whenever you reiterate that it is, then you'd want to ask yourself, what is it that I'd prefer for it to be? And say, it has been hard work. I've made it hard work, even whether I realize it or not. I've made it hard work, obviously, or I wouldn't have experienced it so. And I would really like it to be easier as I go. I'd like it to be easier from here. I'd like to feel like life is smooth and flowing and evolving in a, fluid kind of way, where I'm in the flow of the river and not crashing into rocks repeatedly, where I'm navigating and really in the flow of the stream, staying in the moving water in a way that I just get to enjoy the changing scenery.
Yeah. My little canoe. See, now I got all these visuals going. I got my canoe or my little kayak. I'm going,
Yeah.
I can give you some visuals. I got the airplane. I got the canoe.
And the tree. We've got everything there.
Wow, this is just fascinating. This is really, I like turning it in. Yeah.
It makes it interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of more fun because it's easy to personality type people, but
Yes.
it's even more fun to look at yourself.
Yes.
And
exactly.
because that's
not to categorize yourself, but to look inward, because notice we could then turn those labels inward and say, I am whatever, but that wouldn't help either. To be able to say, it's not that I'm going to label them and fix them in a certain place. I'm not going to then turn around and label myself and fix myself in a certain place. I'm just going to notice what I have been doing, because again, it's not that I do this, but I have done this. What would I like to do going forward, so that we're not even labeling ourselves. We're not fixing anyone in one place. We're letting everyone evolve, starting with us.
Yeah. I like it. Well, change comes within. Like it's that saying, you can't change the world unless you change yourself.
Exactly.
Before we go, I just have to touch base with you about you and your wife then, because you must use these tools a lot in your marriage. And just tell me a little bit, like a glimpse, and then we'll probably have to get into this in another podcast episode, but just a glimpse of like how you guys handle fights or ups and downs, because I'm sure it does come up, right? And any marriage and any partnership. Yeah. So how do you, like, because you're looking in, and I'm sure your wife knows how to use these tools.
Yeah. My wife is also a coach. So
okay.
It becomes in arguments, that's what you're doing to yourself. No, that's what you're doing to yourself. All right, I admit we're both doing this to ourselves, but so ultimately that's pretty much where it goes. But the thing is, it's in every situation you could end up in that trap of saying, in some way this is about the other person. And if you're in an argument, it's because you're thinking of it as about the other person. Also, if you're in an argument, you probably have been putting too much energy into the other person, in the first place, because then it's or into other things that you shouldn't be putting energy into, that in terms of listening to what you want, because then because an argument means we've gone too far, not listening to ourselves, because if our internal guidance were listened to when it's a whisper, it would never need to yell. And that's true with our partners too, obviously. If someone listens to you and respects your boundaries when it's just, you're just saying it nicely, it won't need to turn into yelling. But when they're not listening and respecting boundaries, then it eventually becomes yelling and worse. And that only happens with another person if it's happening within ourselves. So then we'd have to ask ourselves, how have I been continuing to persist? Obviously crossing boundaries, going, even though I'm saying stop, and because otherwise it wouldn't be an argument. There would be no argument within or outside. And ultimately, no matter how aware you are, it has to go back to you, even if the other person seems aware on some level and you seem aware on some level. But if you're having that argument, then you can't just be like, it's because you're doing this and you're doing that, and I'm aware because I see and I can analyze it. It doesn't help. because it still means that it's about you too. I mean, you could say we're both doing this. That would be the most accurate thing to say. Like you said, we end up with people, you had mentioned earlier, we end up with people who are doing the same things. That's actually that is relationships. We meet people who are treating themselves the way we're treating ourselves in some way, so that they could treat us this way and we could treat them this way, and it fits perfectly. Otherwise the mirror wouldn't work. Like obviously, if people were to treat themselves differently than we're treating ourselves, they would not end up in a relationship with us in any capacity. You can't even cross paths with someone unless you have something in common, which, by the way, means has interesting ramifications, because that means that, if you're meeting someone and you're like, oh, I would never do that. Well, you did, or you wouldn't be meeting this person. Like it's an exact reflection. And if you're meeting someone, you're like, wow, this person is like enlightened and like is so far above me. Well, they're not, or you wouldn't be meeting this person. Like you must also be the things that you're seeing in them, or it must be just a step ahead of you. Like it's like there are things that are in common. You can't be far behind or far ahead and be meeting someone. You have got to actually be in the same place. It's like if you think of yourself as driving a car on a highway or on side streets or on some road somewhere, you can only meet the cars who are on the same road, realistically. And that's true in meeting people in life. If you're meeting someone, you're going the same direction at that point in time on the same road and are in a similar place on the road. And that is the only reason you're meeting the person. And so then you can ask, what am I seeing in this person? What does that say about me? Like in terms of where they're headed, in terms of what they're struggling with, in terms of what's bothering me, because all of that, in terms of what I appreciate, what I love, what I'm attracted to here, because all of that is true about you. And if you could connect with the best things in you, and and obviously then change the things that you're not liking in you, then you can change, you can make more of the experience you want and end up continuing in a direction on the roads of life that you want to be going, and seeing who comes along for the ride, who's still on the road with you. And that means not just trying to get on the road with some other person or trying to get them on the road with you, but just go on the road in the direction that you want to be going and see who is still there.
I like it. I like that analogy. Wow, Jonathan, this has been so much fun.
This was great.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you taking the time and chatting with me today.
Yeah.
And we will definitely dive in another time with you and your wife, because that's going to be a whole other conversation. Two coaches in a relationship, in a marriage. Yeah, that is fun.
Sure.
But it is so fascinating. It really is. And now this changes. This is a game changer a little bit. I mean, I always knew it was within me, but I guess I've also known those personality types so much that I've always just been like, oh, they do this because they're a 9. They do this because they're a 5, whatever it may be. And then just accepted it for that reason.
And then you're missing that great opportunity to learn something about what you've been doing that you could either continue or change at your will. Yeah.
Done compartmentalizing, I guess.
It's a process, so don't expect it's going to be like, I'm done as of now, never happening again. But yeah, embracing the fluidity of everything, and letting people be where they are, and letting them evolve, and letting them show you yourself, and changing accordingly.
That's probably why I think some couples or friendships happen, because that they're how do I want to word this? But they're allowing themselves to be that person, right? So like show up who they are.
Yeah.
So then yeah, you're comfortable. You're not working on changing that person or getting upset with them or trying to put on a show for them.
Well, obviously it could go either way. It could be that they're treating you in a way that you're in your negative emotions that you don't like, but have putting a lot of energy into, or you could
be good relationships over here.
You could be in the relationship where
that is
they're
very
like,
true. Yes, they could be putting you in your negative your emotions, or it shows the worst of yourself.
Yeah, or it could be that it's letting you be comfortably you, and like and that could be good or bad also. It could be letting you be comfortably you in your complacence with yourself, where you're not actually actively changing certain things that maybe you want to be.
Mhm.
Or it could be something where they're supporting you actually in being where you are on the way to where you're going. And that's the ideal. But obviously, again, it starts with you. You wouldn't, it's not like they're doing it. They're reflecting what you're doing and you're drawn to them because they do that.
So would you want somebody who challenges you, I guess, in a relationship, or you'd?
No, that would turn it back into hard work. You'd want someone who you'd want, because notice how you're orienting it toward the relationship. Don't look for something in the relationship as much as you look to be the kind of person you want to be to yourself, that you would want someone else to also be to you, in the sense that you wouldn't necessarily want to be always challenging yourself and having someone always challenge you. You'd want someone who just supports you in being where you are, is supportive, is like encouraging, is appreciative, is loving, is kind, and that you can be yourself, be where you are, but also be inspired to more. And obviously you be that to you.
Yeah.
And then see who you're drawn to and what they're like and what, where they're not that, where they are that, and how you could be more of that and continue in that direction, which by the way also brings up the idea that a relationship is just the beginning. Like it's not the end. It's not the, like, home base, I'm safe, good, I got into the relationship. That's just where it all begins. It's a whole new beginning. And it's like, I'm ready to see myself through the reflection in another person. But again, then you're looking in the mirror all the time. And it's sometimes easier to not be looking in the mirror all the time. But when you're looking in the mirror all the time, it encourages you to grow more, or else you don't have the experience you want.
Mhm.
And so even when you get into the relationship, then you continue to imagine, what is it that I really want to be experiencing? How could I be that more to myself? What's going on here? How could I change that, make it better in myself? And if you keep doing that, then even once you get into the relationship will continue to grow and evolve in the direction that you want it to go. And it won't be that it's like whatever it started at, it's just like only that and exactly that forever in eternity, because that wouldn't reflect our own endless growth process, that we continue growing, and then everything grows together with us, and everyone around us and our partners grow with us. And that's really the key. That's what we're looking for.
Time's up. Time's up.
sorry, sorry about that.
It's like, no, it's one of those
Right.
bells. It's like, all right, like I
I
don't know,
know,
Jeopardy or
like the
something.
wrestling match. Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
it was amazing. This was really good. I really enjoyed this
Thank you.
whole exchange. Yeah.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I'm going to pause it for just a second. Uh, So Jonathan, where can everybody find you? Tell us, because I'll also put in the show notes, but you have your book, you have your coaching. Give me a little information on that.
Yeah, of course. So it's 12 books at this point. And you can find all of them and also contact me and find out more about coaching and everything else that I offer on my website, inspirationallifeguidance.com. So anyone who wants to find out more about anything that you heard today, inspirationallifeguidance.com, you can find out more there. You can see more about my philosophy. You can see my books on Amazon. I present more of these ideas, and obviously you could contact me if you wanted a free consultation and got to, see if you want to see how this applies in your own life, your own situation. And yeah, I'm available.
Perfect. Well, thank you for joining. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.